All right, let's dive right into today's explainer. We're looking at one of the absolute most enigmatic figures in all of recorded history. I mean, this is a guy who just appears, completely out of nowhere. He blesses the greatest patriarch of the ancient world, and then, poof, vanishes just as quickly as he arrived. We are pulling back the curtain on the ultimate biblical cold case, the mystery of Melchizedek.
It seems like a pretty simple question, right? Who was Melchizedek? Well, for over 3,000 years, theologians, ancient scholars, and everyday seekers of truth have been trying to solve this exact same mystery. This isn't just some minor footnote. No, this is a figure who literally disrupts everything we thought we knew about the ancient biblical world.
And here's exactly why this cold case is so baffling. The source texts give us absolutely zero origin story. We have no family tree, no record of his birth, and no record of his death. The writer of the New Testament book of Hebrews actually describes him as being without father or mother, without genealogy. And you know, in the ancient Near East, where your lineage dictated literally everything about your identity and authority, that kind of absence isn't just unusual, it is deafening.
Part 1. The Genesis Encounter. A meeting in the Valley of Shaveh.
So, let's set the scene here. Abraham, who's actually still called Abram at this point, has just pulled off this daring military rescue. He's defeated an alliance of 4 kings to rescue his nephew Lot. He's riding high, coming back with all the spoils of war. And then, out of nowhere, this total stranger steps out. The text tells us, "Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was priest of God Most High, and he blessed Abram. Then Abram gave him a tenth of everything." Think about that. Abram, the patriarch chosen by God to birth a literal nation, stops, bows, and gives a tenth of his spoils to a man we have never met before.
Part 2. Analyzing the clues. What's in a name?
Now, in ancient texts, names are never accidental. They always mean something. Consider the literal translation of his name. In Hebrew, Melchizedek is made up of 2 parts. You have Melech, which means king, and Sedek, meaning righteousness. So put them together, and his very name literally translates to the King of Righteousness.
But wait, there's more. The text also tells us he is the king of Salem. Now, Salem is derived from the word shalom, which, as you probably know, means peace. So, if we string this together chronologically exactly like the ancient writers did, he is sequentially the king of righteousness and then the king of peace.
And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate anomaly of this guy. See, in ancient Israel under the law of Moses, the roles of king and priest were strictly, completely separated. Kings ruled the people, and they came from the tribe of Judah. Priests interceded with God, and they came from the tribe of Levi. You could absolutely not be both. I mean, when King Saul tried to act as a priest, he lost his entire dynasty. When King Uzziah tried to burn incense in the temple, he was struck with leprosy. Yet here we have Melchizedek holding both offices simultaneously, centuries before the law was even written.
Part 3. The 3 Great Theories. Suspects in the Biblical Cold Case.
Because of his bizarre origins and this broken taboo, 3 distinct theories have emerged over the centuries to explain exactly who this man was. The first theory? Well, it posits that he was simply a historical mortal king, a Gentile ruler of ancient Salem, which, by the way, would later become Jerusalem, who remarkably came to worship the one true God, El Elyon, the Most High. This view essentially suggests he retained the knowledge of God passed down from earlier generations, making this meeting a beautiful, super rare convergence of 2 faithful men in a deeply pagan world.
Okay, moving on to the second theory. This one is deeply rooted in Jewish rabbinic literature and the ancient Targums, and it identifies Melchizedek as Noah's son, Shem. If you do the math and look at the biblical genealogies, Shem actually lived to be 600 years old. So his 465-year post-flood lifespan historically overlapped with Abraham's life. As the carrier of the pre-flood knowledge and Noah's blessing, Shem would have had the immense, undeniable spiritual authority required to bless Abraham.
But then there's the third, and perhaps most breathtaking theory. A lot of theologians argue that Melchizedek was what's called a Christophany, a pre-incarnate appearance of the Son of God stepping into human history long, long before Bethlehem. This theory leans really heavily on the fact that he has no beginning of days nor end of life, proposing that the King of Righteousness and Peace was, quite literally, the divine word appearing to bless Abraham.
Part 4. The Paradigm Shift, an Eternal Priesthood. Now, the mystery of Melchizedek doesn't just end in Genesis. It's like a thread woven through millennia. He pops up in 2000 BC with Abraham. Then, He vanishes for 1,000 years until King David suddenly brings him up again in 1000 BC. And then, another 1,000 years pass before he becomes the central theological linchpin in the first century New Testament book of Hebrews.
Let's look at what King David writes about him in Psalm 110, which actually happens to be the most quoted psalm in the New Testament. It says, "The Lord has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek." David is writing this highly prophetic verse predicting a coming Messiah who wouldn't just be some standard Levitical priest, but would operate under an entirely different eternal priestly order.
So, by the time we finally get to the book of Hebrews, the author lays out this completely brilliant logical argument. Step 1. Abraham submitted and tithed to Melchizedek. Step 2. In ancient culture, the lesser person is always blessed by the greater person. Step 3. Because the entire Levitical priesthood descended from Abraham, that means the Levitical system itself was symbolically bowing down to Melchizedek. Think about the magnitude of that. The Levitical system is inherently subordinate. Part 5. The final fulfillment. The ultimate priesthood.
And this brings us straight to the so what. Why does this ancient encounter matter so profoundly to how we understand biblical archetypes today? Well, there's a really stark contrast between these two orders. The order of Aaron, the Levitical priests, was strictly temporary. It required these endless, repetitive animal blood sacrifices, and it was entirely dependent on your physical ancestry. But the order of Melchizedek, completely different. It is eternal. It was marked by bread and wine, not animal sacrifice. And it's based on, as Hebrews says, the power of an indestructible life.
So here is the absolutely crucial point. Jesus hails from the tribe of Judah, and Judah is the tribe of kings. Under the strict law of Moses, Jesus was totally disqualified from being a priest in Aaron's order. But by stepping into the order of Melchizedek, he bypasses that Levitical requirement entirely. He brilliantly unifies both the role of king and the role of priest into one single eternal office, fulfilling the archetype that was set thousands of years prior. Because he serves in this totally superior eternal order, Jesus didn't need to offer daily, repetitive sacrifices like the earthly priests did day in and day out. Instead, the text argues he offered himself as the one sacrifice once for all time.
And man, we absolutely cannot ignore the breadcrumb trail left back in Genesis. Remember those seemingly minor elements Melchizedek brought out to Abraham? Bread and wine. He didn't bring a slaughtered lamb. He brought bread and wine. They perfectly, almost hauntingly, foreshadow the elements of the Last Supper instituted by Jesus Christ right before his own sacrifice.
So, whether he was a mortal Canaanite king just acting faithfully in his time, the ancient patriarch Shem passing the torch to a new generation, or the pre-incarnate Son of God himself stepping right into the dust of the earth, the clues all point directly forward to an eternal high priest. We've laid out the facts, the history, and the source text. So I want to leave you with this final, truly provocative thought. Based on all the evidence we've covered in today's explainer, who do you believe Melchizedek really was? Let that sit with you for a while as you continue to explore these incredible ancient texts.